Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Why, if it isn't Oishi-san, good afternoon. Haha, fancy meeting you here. That's my line, Doctor. I never thought I'd see you here. What happened? Oh, nothing, just a little house call. Oh, really? Was it an emergency? No, nothing quite that serious, thankfully. I'll take my leave here. If I don't get back quickly, my staff will be angry with me. Being the head of a clinic must be tough. Well then, take care. The young doctor named Irie, after gesturing his farewell, drove forwards and soon disappeared around a corner. Oishi also drove forwards, but soon came to a stop again. He pulled out a worn map book from the dash. His expression didn't have an ounce of irreverence. He was perfectly serious. What is it? The clinic shouldn't be making any house calls today. It must have been quite an emergency, or otherwise a patient with some extenuating circumstances. Oishi flipped through the pages, opening up to a map of Takatsuzo. After that, he took a look around and started to figure out what our current location was. Are you saying that emergency is suspicious? Didn't I say? There is hardly anybody that lives in Takatsudo area. The road we're on right now is here. Dr. Irie came from this direction. Having no sense of our surroundings, I couldn't digest anything about the place he was indicating on the map. We're heading towards the spot where the wallet was found. By the way, that's over here. But see, if you're heading to one of these residents in Takatsudo, it's the wrong road. Meaning Dr. Irie came from a direction where there are no residents, as long as somebody working in the fields between these mountains didn't collapse. But if somebody collapses and you call a doctor, normally you'd bring them back with you for a more detailed examination. But just now Dr. Irie said it was nothing serious, and it didn't seem like anybody else was in the car with him. Oishi didn't say anything more than that. I also said nothing more. That doctor just now examined a patient, close by, only that. The noisy radio had suddenly gone quiet. The sky had just as suddenly turned an oppressive color. As Oishi mused that it might start to rain, a torrential downpour started, as though trying not to disappoint him. Eventually Oishi stopped the car. The only sounds to break the silence were the percussion of the rain on the roof and the soft squeak of the windshield wipers. Let's do this a bit hush-hush, shall we? Saying that in a quiet voice, he exited the car without an umbrella, careful not to make any noise. Oishi leaned over, indicating the other side of the thicket. He was pointing to a prefabricated shed and a car that was parked beside it. The car looked obviously well cared for. It wasn't a vehicle that had been left there for several years. What's that shed? It contains equipment used by the forestry service. I heard that they don't go near it except during the summertime. Does that car belong to somebody from the forestry service then? Don't know. It doesn't look like an official vehicle though. Oishi was playing it cool, but my nervousness was gradually increasing. Just in case. Saying that, Oishi returned to the car. I thought he was going to get an umbrella, but he had grabbed the onboard radio instead. Hello, this is Oishi. Do you read? Greetings, greetings. Yes, this is Okinomio SB. Oishi-san, we read you loud and clear. Over. I'm currently in front of the Forestry Service's equipment shed, not the one in the direction of Yogashi, the one in Takatsuzo. If you head there from Hinamazawa. Affirmative, copy that. There's some suspicious people in the shed. Proceeding to investigate. If you don't hear back from me in 5 minutes, get in touch with the local police substation and have them send a cruiser as soon as possible, if you would please. Understood. Well then, shall we go take a look? Since he was first confined here, he had heard the sound of a car multiple times. So he just thought the far-off sound was more of the same. However, the reaction from his captors was, until now, something he hadn't seen before. They jumped, reacting as if shocked by a jolt of electricity, and pressed against the window, cautiously peering outside. They stopped. Somebody from the Forestry Service. This is bad. Nah, looks like a cop to me. One of the captors lifted the boy by his collar and pressed the blade against his cheek. Hey kid, keep quiet for a bit. I think you know this, but if you try to shout, there will be problems. Toshiki Inugai was sure that the doctor had reported things to the police. He had felt relief when he thought that he was saved, but not imagining that his captors would resort to violence when they were cornered, his anxiety remained unabated. What do we do? Gotta buy time. Take the kid and slip out of the back. We'll meet back air when the heat's off. One of the perpetrators grabbed the boy by the collar and forced him to stand. Of course, Toshiki Inugai tried to resist by feigning that his illness had been aggravated by his rough treatment, but his captors paid no heed. Bang, bang, bang. The door was violently banged upon. Excuse me, hello. Bang, 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 bang. The door was banged on again. Toshiki Inugai hesitated for a moment to respond to that voice by yelling. However, while he was being indecisive, his mouth was covered, taking that option away from him. The leader of the captors waved at the other to go. The younger perpetrator nodded in response, and while keeping the boy's mouth covered, started heading towards the back door. Hello, do you need something? How do you do? This is the police. Would you mind opening the door? This sudden rain has us in a bit of trouble. I'll just open. The moment the lock was undone, Oishi forced the door open, and with a gleam of menace in his eyes, he pushed the man aside as he stepped into the room. Then, in the small and empty room, he was able to quickly discern that the boy he was looking for was nowhere to be seen. I heard this was an equipment shed for the Forestry Services, but there's nothing here at all. There was nothing inside the room that would indicate this was an equipment shed. There was only a mountain of blankets indicating that somebody was sleeping here, alongside empty food packets strewn about. It's been empty for some time now. Never seen an equipment store around there. But this is the Forestry Service building, isn't it? Are you from the Forestry Service? How about ya, police? The two of them glared at each other suspiciously. Both Oishi and the man steadfastly refused to reveal their identity before the other did. Yeah. The man, judging from the sharp look in Oishi's eyes, realized that it would be hard to talk his way out of this one. No matter what he said, the most time he could buy would probably be in a few dozen seconds. Only the sound of rain filled this tense moment. Just then, they heard the sound of a struggle from far off. Oishi had a hunch. There was no doubt that Akasaka, who was circling around back, had run into the perpetrators who were trying to slip away. As Oishi thought that, the man in front of him reacted a moment faster. The man swung with an attack that was more intended to obscure Oishi's vision rather than actually hit him in the face. Seizing this opportunity, the man aimed a kick at Oishi's groin without any hesitation, but he missed his mark and was unable to land that critical blow. The man trying to pin Oishi grabbed him by the bases of his neck with both hands and fiercely tried to push him down, but as Oishi fell backwards as if kicking the man upwards, he dug his foot into the man's midsection. With that leg acting as a fulcrum, the man was flung by the falling Oishi as if by a circle throw. The two of them squared off in the pouring rain. Isn't this interesting? You want to go? Oishi, as if trying to cheer himself on, grinned smugly. He then stood up while brushing the mud off himself. Even though he countered the assault, Oishi was getting up rather awkwardly compared to the man who swiftly sprang to his feet. Oishi-san, hurry! Kasuka's voice rang out from the distance. Judging from the distress in his voice, he was already engaged in a fight and wanted Oishi to reconvene with him. But Oishi's hands were full as well. Kasuka-san, sorry, but can you wait a bit? The man raised both fists into a stance that hinted him being acquainted with karate or some other form of martial arts. Well, it has now become Baki the Grappler. Of course, Oishi, as an officer of law, was decently versed in judo. He also had the moxie to have been through his fair share of fights before. Because of that, he could tell that the man in front of him was quite a bit better at fighting than he was. Ah, damn it. Thinking that this was going to be an easy just because the order came from Sonozaki family to release the hostage has been a big mistake. You're pretty good. It's been a while since I got this worked up. Oishi played off the situation like it was no sweat. His opponent, seeing his attitude, took that to mean that Oishi wasn't going to go down easily. The man wildly charged forward, attempting to grab Oishi. If the man managed a successful clinch from his low stance, Oishi would be tackled to the ground and end up being mounted. It was something you saw often when children fought, but it really was a bad position, since you couldn't do much once you were in it. Oishi, responding to that move, also lowered his stance to collide with the man head-on. The moment they clashed, Oishi grabbed the man's lapel. As he yanked the lapel upwards, he smashed into the man's solar plexus with the elbow of the same arm. It was a move from Oishi's own personal brand of brawling judo. He then grabbed on with his free hand and attempted to throw his opponent with both hands. But the man lowered his center of gravity and swung his arms in a large arc, entwining them with Oishi's. Not only that, but he had forced both Oishi's elbows to the outside, and Oishi, now in an awkward position, was in danger of exposing his back with his hands still clutching the man's chest. This guy practiced Aikido or grappling, didn't he? Oishi, cursing the fact that his fingers were twisted into the man's shirt and couldn't get away, released his grip, but he was still in the awkward position of being bent over. And to top it off at zero range, the man was able to read Oishi's movements completely as he tried to squirm away into a better position. And then took the palms of his hands and swiftly clapped them over both of Oishi's ears. Clapping the ears in any other martial arts except for self-defense was basically forbidden. Karate and Judo didn't recognize it as a legal technique. It was that much of a simple and dangerous attack. Oishi raised both his hands as he tried to reflexively clutch at his own ears. But before that could happen, the man wrapped his arms around Oishi's neck. His thick biceps clenched firmly around the base of Oishi's neck like a vice. Oishi instinctively thought he was going to be killed. Correctly so. After all, it wasn't hard to believe that a man like this, who was accustomed to fighting, could crush his opponent's neck from this position. That is also true, but even if he doesn't crush your neck, we're eventually going to suffocate. But his opponent didn't do that. He had chosen to keep his hold and force Oishi to lose consciousness. That's why Oishi, at that moment, even though his face was twitching, was grinning widely. Even though his opponent had a chance to kill him, he didn't choose to. He was thinking, this guy has no intention of killing me. However, even though that might be the case, the man's hold on his neck was by no means gentle. In no time at all, Oishi's consciousness began to fade. Having the experience of being taken down countless times in judo during his student days, Oishi was utterly resigned to the fact that it was over. Akasaka was finally recovering from the intense pain of being kicked in a rather sensitive area. He had bumped into the captor carrying the boy by the back entrance. He had seen Toshiki Inugai's picture plenty of times, but wasn't able to immediately ascertain if the boy in front of him was the real deal. What with his mouth covered in packing tape, also with his limited experience, it wasn't hard for him to panic over how to deal with this situation. Of course, the perpetrator didn't overlook this momentary lapse. His kick landed squarely in a critical spot, with Akasaka not even having time to call for help. As the man flung the boy over his shoulders, he headed towards the front of the shed. But upon hearing Oishi's belling voice, he gave up on that direction. He then dashed off towards the forest, as if the weight of the boy slung over his shoulder wasn't even there. Akasaka was lost for a moment. Meeting up Oishi, who was fighting with the enemy, was by far the safer option. But he couldn't just lose sight of the fleeing man. Akasaka stood up and chased after the captor's back. He ran through a short thicket, branches and fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The tips of branches raked and clawed at him, small scratches inscribing themselves on his body one after another. He kept on stepping into puddles and mud, and his shoes were soon filled with murky water. For Akasaka, traveling through this unexplored forest was, even though this was an emergency situation, extremely unpleasant. "Stop! This is the police." As he said that, he regretted immediately, as it was a waste of breath. There wasn't a thief in the world that would politely stop when told by the police. To a city boy like Akasaka, running through this forest was an arduous task. However, it must have been no easy task either for the man carrying the minister's grandson. He neither gained nor lost ground in his pursuit. Akasaka, upon realizing that, gained back a bit of composure. Just keep on chasing him. We were running in the same conditions. In fact, the man running with an awkward stride was at far more of a disadvantage. They couldn't run forever. Eventually, he'd definitely trip and fall. As long as he was being hounded, he would definitely stumble. As soon his wish was fulfilled, whoa! The man who had stepped in something and lost his balance was no longer able to bear the weight of the boy, dropping him. Akasaka, in all honesty, didn't care about the perpetrator at all, just as long as he could ensure the safety of Toshiki Inugai. So if the perpetrator ran off by himself, it was perfectly acceptable. But it seemed that Toshiki Inugai was important to the man as well, and didn't elect to just run away empty-handed. Akasaka didn't know what to do in this kind of situation. His first priority should probably be to ensure the safety of the boy, subduing his captor being less important. Yes, but at the end of the day is this. If the other person's not going to just surrender or run away, then in that situation, I think the cop should be able to pull out your gun and, well, the guy gets the point. You either leave and, or you choose to fight. And obviously, so it's not like you're out like just pulling out your gun and just shooting the guy. You're pulling out the gun and like making sure like, hey, you can peacefully surrender, you can leave, but if you try to fight and stop me from saving this kid, I will shoot you. Grappling with the perpetrator wasn't something he planned on, but most likely it was either do or die. Akasaka's moment of indecision proved to be fatal. The man, aiming right between, or rather for both of Akasaka's eyes, struck out with a jab. Not wanting that, Akasaka raised both his hands to shield his face. At that moment, the man kicked at his unguarded midsection. The pain almost felt like his vital organs were being squeezed out of his body, but he latched onto his opponent's leg. I understand, this is the more honorable thing, fighting. Here's the thing. If you lose, what happens to the kid? Which means, what's the point in any of that if you fail? So at the end of the day is this. You have to prioritize success. Yes, you should have combat skills for if your gun is taken away from you or something. But in this kind of situation, especially since it's a very out of the ordinary circumstance, I mean, it's not like, oh, you pulled someone over for speeding and they, like, you know, pulled out a gun or something. This is... someone's kidnapped a small child and you're trying to save the kid. Though honestly, the first one would actually merit lethal response too. Just saying. Trusting your combat skills, even if you're training that stuff in this situation. I mean, if you don't have your gun on you, yes. But if you have your gun, like, a gun is a very useful tool. And this would be appropriate use. This would be a correct and appropriate and good use of it. Leading with a seized foot, the man jumped at Akasaka, applying pressure and pushing him down. Akasaka was unable to withstand that and fell, but under no circumstances was he letting that leg go. The two men fell together in a tangled heap. The man was desperate to pull his leg free from Akasaka, but having fallen in an awkward position was unable to. The two of them rolled around on the ground, floundering about, trying to gain an advantage. But Akasaka was holding onto his opponent's knee with both hands, and that opponent, who had complete freedom to move his upper body, were in two completely different situations. Yeah. Like, obviously, you know, the police shouldn't just point their gun and use it willy-nilly, but I feel like both Oishi and Akasaka would have been justified just immediately pulling out their guns in this circumstance. The man gained a now, of course, they shouldn't, like, immediately shoot the person unless they are also holding a gun. But they're like, hey, I have a gun, don't do anything, or else, you know, the gun will suddenly lose some weight. The man gained a positional advantage in Akasaka, who was still latched onto his leg and couldn't move away, and pounded full force on his head with both his fists. Not only that, he found a rock nearby and beat it against Akasaka's skull. Well, that's lethal. That actually would be very easy to die from. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Thwack, thwack, thwack. The difference between being hit with a fist and being with the rock was vast. Akasaka quickly thought of letting go of the man's leg to free his hands and protect his head. I mean, honestly, that would be a smart decision because taking severe damage to your head will be lethal. Honestly. But if you let go here, the man will get away. If you didn't dig in here, everything would be for naught. Also, it would be for naught if you get knocked unconscious. Or, you know, your brain starts leaking out. You also can't hold on to the leg if you're dead. The boy he was trying to save was right there. He was going to save him and go back to Tokyo. If he could do that, then it was goodbye to this freakish village. Bam, crack, thud. Without looking, I could tell my forehead had split open and was gushing blood. But I didn't let go of the man's leg. How could I? I won't let go. Okay. Let him go. He'll run away a few steps. Pull out your gun, and you shoot him before you lose consciousness. Otherwise, when the man realized that no matter how much he beat my head, he wasn't getting away, he used both his hands to grab my throat as if to crush my windpipe. I pulled my head back as a slight form of resistance, but it was of no use. The man's hands enveloped my neck and began to crush it like a vice. It was less about pain of not being able to breathe, so much as it was choking so hard I felt like I was going to throw up. It felt like my stomach was going to turn itself inside out, but I could only endure it. Damn it, damn it, damn it, my throat hurts. I won't let go, I can't let go. I didn't want to be here. If only there was some tool that used gunpowder that could have easily resolved both of these fights. And yes, I feel strongly that a gun is predominantly a useful tool for self-defense. And shouldn't be used recklessly or without good reason. But both of these are very good reason. Go back to Tokyo and talk to Yuki. All about our unborn child. We were going to talk about our bright future. I had no intention of loosening my grip. However, it loosened just a bit, and the man's leg came free. The man kicked as hard as possible. I tumbled backwards. My head was spinning, and I was unable to get up right away. No, I couldn't even put any strength into getting up in the first place. Even so, I couldn't back down. If I let him escape now, this chance would never come again. Even just catching their scent was nothing short of a miracle. If we weren't able to get the minister's grandson back here, there wouldn't be another chance. The man tried to drag the boy to his feet, but the kid was displaying some unexpected resistance, allowing me to get up unnoticed. I grasped the rock the man had just beat me over the head with. Now it's my turn. Yarg! The rock should be able to supplement what meager strength I had left, adding more than enough power to my attack. Or you could have just pulled out your gun. My fist still wrapped around the rock, dug into the side of the man's torso. It seemed like it hurt him quite a bit. Ugh. Gah. The man rolled around for a bit, clutching his side. Freed from the man's grip, the boy hid behind me. Toshiki Inu guy, right? I've come to help you. To the boy, those were the words he was waiting for the most. But the crisis was still not over. That was because, even though he was still clutching at his side, the man had gotten up again and had taken a fighting stance. I could see in the man's eyes the resentment at the pain I had caused him, and the confidence that he could still beat me. If we were to clash head-on again, he might not even stop if my head were split open. Stop resisting. Surrender quietly. You should just hand the boy over. Do you want me to snap your neck? Who would listen to you now? Reinforcements are already on their way. There's nowhere for you to run. The man reacted adversely to the word reinforcements. That was because he now knew that arguing like this wasn't going to just waste of time, but put him closer and closer to danger. Realizing that, the man shifted mental gears almost too quickly. Then let's finish this fast. How about this? What? What the man pulled from his back pocket was, of all things, a gun. Of course, I'm a police officer. It's not like I don't know what a gun is. But having one pointed at me was something I'd never experienced before. Was it real? Of course it was. There's no way to be a replica in a situation like this. Put both your hands behind your head and lay down quietly. Don't get cocky, you villain. You know, this all could have been avoided if we had already pulled out our gun. I won't do anything you say. You stupid idiot. Do you not know what this is without me shooting you with it? Then shoot. Reinforcements will hear the gunshot and head right over here. Are you stupid? We're in the middle of the forest, and on top of that it's raining. They'll never hear a thing. Do you not have bullets? As long as he still had the gun, no matter how much I yelled at him, I was at a distinct disadvantage, but I still had a fighting chance. If I were in his shoes, instead of wasting time yelling at each other like this, I would just shoot him and take the boy. That was the fastest and would suppress any sort of further resistance from him. But the man was demanding my surrender without having fired a shot, meaning that he either didn't want to shoot or couldn't. In other words, the man in front of me was soft. If I could buy even just a little more time, the factors that would lead to my victory were numerous. Oishi was probably on his way, or unconscious, and the reinforcements we called for before coming here should already be well on their way too, unless they were rerouted and those people ran on it. Not only that, they should have contacted the local police box. Without a doubt, somebody stationed in the village would be here more quicker than that. Damn it. Do I have to put a bullet in you to understand how dangerous this thing is? There's no escape. Don't add this to your crimes. Don't add to your crimes. At that moment I heard the rustling of foliage and heavy footsteps approaching. If Oishi was coming here, it was a whole new ballgame. The man couldn't have more than one gun. Oishi-san, over here. Huh? I had thought that time was on my side. But I failed to even imagine that the enemy could also have reinforcements. You could tell the man who had just appeared was one of the perpetrators just by looking at him. What are you doing? If you don't hurry up, the police will get here. Stop lollygagging. Damn it. What happened to Oishi-san? Oh, that chubby fella? He's down for the count. He is. Damn it. The boy, sensitive to the impending danger, curled up behind my back. How could this be? Damn it! Your buddy isn't coming. Serves you right. Shoes on the other foot now. As I backed up against a large tree while still protecting the boy, the second man also pulled out a gun. Won't be saying this twice. Put your hands on your head and lie down. I refuse. Bang. As I shouted in protest, blood erupted from my left shoulder. It took a few moments to register that I had been shot. You know what would have prevented this? Shooting them first. It's not like you didn't have cause. It's just, well... I mean, at least they shot us in the fucking shoulder. Compared to the ones in the movies... Yeah. Compared to the ones from in movies and TV dramas, the first actual gunshot I heard was simple and mundane. In fact, the sound was more akin to the small fireworks I used to buy from the corner store as a kid, but there was no comparing the pain. It was a fear you knew only after you've been shot. Ah. Sir. Are you okay? Are you okay? The boy, in his confusion, tugged at my clothes, agitating the wound even further. I wanted to put on a bold face and reassure him, but my voice was hoarse and had the opposite effect. I'm alright. I've already called for backup. There'll be a full squad here soon. It'll be quicker to put on through your head. Put on through your head before the cops get here. But that family said no needless killing. So I'm taking it easy on you. Don't mess with me or I ain't holding back. This was bad. It was very, very bad. The second man was a completely different beast than the first. He had no signs of indecisiveness or mercy. This man said he'd shoot. He wasn't somebody that a man like me could buy time from. I really hated to admit it, but at that moment, the image of Yuki's smiling face crossed the back of my mind. I knew what that meant. I was warning myself to not throw my life away over a matter of pride. Of course, I didn't want to die here. I was just starting a new life with Yuki, and I wanted to see the face of our soon-to-be-born child. Why should I risk my life for some minister's grandson when I was at such a critical juncture in my own life? Ugh, damn it. I need to stop rambling at myself. So what do I do now? Give up the boy and extend my own life? What a good idea. Everybody's life is precious. My own life was in danger. Nobody would blame me. Ah, goddammit, it hurts. If I had known it would be this painful, I wouldn't have played the tough guy. My biggest miscalculation, though, was that the sound of the gunshot was far quieter than I had imagined. If it was only that loud, it would be drowned out by the rain in the forest. It wasn't something that somebody far away could hear. Damn it. Wait, just wait. I don't want to die. And I don't want to kill you. As long as you understand. Don't shoot, okay? Don't shoot. I have a wife waiting for me at home. I don't want to die. I won't shoot, as long as you don't yell or nothing. Just quietly put your hands on your head and lie down. Will you really? You'll keep your promise, right? This is a promise between men. I will. Z is a promise between men. Keep your promise, keep it. I'm going to get down on the ground, okay? I'm getting down. I'll keep my promise, so stop pointing that gun at me. You're still thinking of shooting me, aren't you? You want to shoot me, don't you? When I get down to the ground, you're just going to shoot me in the back of the head, aren't you? I won't. Fine. I'll put it away. I'll put that gun away. It is a promise between men. There. No problem now, yeah? Yeah, absolutely no complaints. I mean, it bought time. Gah! It was over in a flash. The moment he lowered his gun, Oishi didn't let his chance slip by. Oishi had been assessing the situation for quite some time from behind the two men. But since they had their guns trained at me, he didn't really have a chance to jump in. Seeing the look on Oishi's face, indicating that he wanted me to create an opening, I took on that role completely. Oishi forcefully lifted the arm that was holding the gun. He then took the gun from the man's hand in an instant. You also have a gun, Oishi. You could have just used your gun. The other man, who was a bit slow in grasping what was happening, pointed his gun at them. But with his ally grabbing Oishi, he couldn't pull the trigger. If that man was the one that was wrestling with Oishi at the moment, he might have shot without hesitation. But this man wouldn't shoot. He couldn't shoot. Oishi shook the other man away, and while aiming the stolen gun with his left hand, pulled out his own. With guns akimbo, he was aiming at both men at the same time. I do believe that's checkmate. It was perfectly played, but heedless of the guns pointing at them, the men shouted, "Scram!" as they scattered away at full speed. It was over in an instant. Those two running away without putting up a fight was honestly unexpected. Oishi, quietly clicking his tongue in admonishment, slipped both guns into his pants pockets. Tisk. Those guys know their stuff. What do you mean? An officer won't fire at somebody who's fleeing. Unless he was carrying a kidnapped person, and I can't catch them. Then it's justified to shoot somebody, because otherwise the other person's, getting kidnapped. But if they're running away and I have the person I'm trying to save, then I'm not going to just shoot them in the back. At that point, it doesn't accomplish anything other than kill them. The only reason to shoot them in the back if they're running with the kid is because they're kidnapping somebody and I'm trying to save them. So it means if I don't shoot them, somebody will die or be gone. But if they're not carrying anybody, then, well, I want to keep my pension here. Oishi and I grinned at each other. I'm bleeding. Hi, bleeding. I'm Oishi. Are you Toshiki Inu guy? The grandson of the Minister of Construction Inu guy? Yes. This is going to be a major incident. We probably only cut the tail of the lizard bow. Oishi smiled amusedly. The fact that the Onagafushi Defense Alliance, or rather the Sonozaki family, behind them, was pulling the strings was apparent, but proving it wouldn't be easy. And with apologies to Oishi, this incident was unlikely to go public. If this caused an uproar, it would obviously lead to the minister losing his office. With HQ having decided that doing so was in national interest, this would probably be cleaned up quietly. It might be a rough way of saying it, but this was born in the shadows and was going to die in the shadows. But we should probably already understood the implications behind this incident. For the time being, let's cordon off this area, since it seems that one of them still has a gun. After that, let's get Inugai-kun to safety and get you to the hospital. As the tension of this situation faded, the pain from the gunshot wound on my shoulder blossomed once again. My forehead, also stinging painfully, had grown hot enough to start a fire. Thinking that the tension had caused me to sweat, I wiped my forehead, but what came off was a large amount of blood. I realized that my shirt had been stained bright crimson from the blood flowing from my head. I turned around. The boy was safe and sound. Without a doubt, there would probably be an investigation on the man who ran, but that was for another day. At this point in time, I could safely say we had cleared the major hurdle of securing the boy's safety. As soon as I recognized that fact, it felt like the lights in my head had been hit by the power failure. My knees buckled from underneath me, the ground there feeling as soft as a cloud. It didn't even feel unpleasant as I was covered in the rain-soaked mud. Oishi came closer. Asking if I was okay, but somehow I couldn't tell. I turned off the switch to the last light in my head. The exhaustion enveloped me. Sleep.